run-of-the-mill defense, like how to set up your arms to do like a proper armbar defense, and then we can go into when it's happening more like a regular armbar. Can I be in your guard and just start with their armbar from guard, right? So this is something that I do whenever a person manages to make my arm cross my center line, right? Because once this happens, I know a couple things are possible, right? I could either get swept into the side where I don't have my base, or they're going to attack this arm, right? If I have to choose between either defending a sweep or an armbar, I'm always going to prioritize defending the armbar, right? Because if I get swept, I can keep going. If I get armbarred, game's done, right? So usually if you make the mistake of having this happen, like great, you're gonna get swept, right? You made a mistake, you're gonna pay for it, right? But when as that's happening, you need to prioritize, keeping this arm defended. But anyway, so as I'm gonna have you start going for this armbar here, so you're gonna pull, whichever one you want.
Preferred side?
I don't have a preferred side. So when this happens and I get this arm across, immediately I need to address the fact that this is vulnerable, right? So I'm gonna hide it in between my arm here, like in my, elbow pit. And this hand is gonna be on the other side of my face, waiting to catch the leg, right? So as he continues with this armbar, right? As he's gonna, eventually at some point, he's gonna throw this leg in front of my face to finish, right? Because he wants to attack this arm here, right? So as he throws, I'm gonna make sure that my hand, right behind his knee here, right? And I'm just gonna catch it and make sure that he can't like really push my face away, right? Most people in their armbar, their goal is gonna be to aggressively attack my posture, and they're gonna try and make my face as uncomfortable as possible here. So this, I need to be ready to like push back into it, right? I don't just want my hand like all floppy behind his knee, right? I need to be actively thinking about like, I'm gonna make space between his knee and my face, right? Because I can have this like in the way, but if I'm not doing anything, then it doesn't matter, right? He's gonna push me to the floor. So this needs to be really active. And once I get control here, I wanna start stacking my person up, right? Don't overstack, right? That's not good. I'm almost thinking about like rolling him like a rolling pin over dough, right? And I'm just trying to smoosh his center of gravity over his face. I want his knees driven into his face, right? Because ideally, right, we could get into a spot here where I can really start just escaping my elbow and pulling my arm out. But if you're against a person who already got you into an armbar, right, you can't be just casually pulling your elbow out, because if I just decide to pull, right, there's going to be a spot in there where that armbar is perfect right before the elbow gets released. So if if they manage to catch you, or they're waiting for you to just try and yank it out, they're going to break your arm, right? So instead, what I prioritize is I'm just going to make sure that no matter what, he's unable to escape, right? And then, maybe I'll think about trying to pull this out, but if this is a really good person, I'm just gonna wait here until I feel him let it go, right? However long that takes. I don't have to move, I'm defending, right? It's his priority to keep the action going at whatever pace that he wants, but if I'm in immediate danger, like I'll spend the rest of the match here if I think that, any sort of movement that I make will result in me getting my arm broken, right? A couple things that I look for. When I'm in this position, I need to make sure that Rich can't rotate underneath me, right? So I like to use one of my knees as like a little stop, either next to his neck or next to his armpit, to make sure he can't rotate and then force me into like a pendulum sweep? Right? And then also focusing on, again, not pushing forward here, right? This is no good, right? So, like once I get my hand behind his knee, I almost think about like trying to spin him, right? And then I want to get right 90 degrees here and get my knee. Let's rotate. I want my knee in this space here so that he can't go underneath, right? If I'm here and he'll do a belly down armbar, or just get my arm out of the place where I can defend it. Right, so we're doing the jiu-jitsu, right? He manages to pull my elbow across here, right? However he does. Immediately I'm starting to think, I'm just gonna have this in a safe spot. And most people, right, they see me, like good people, they see this, they're like, okay, he's waiting for an arm bar, we're not gonna do anything, right? And then, great, you've defended the arm bar, right? And then you can start trying to walk everything, your elbows back into a good position, right? But every once in a while, you got a guy who's like, okay, like, I'm gonna call your bluff or your bet, right? And they go for the arm bar. We need to be ready to catch this hand, right? And now I'm thinking, knee to nose, right? I like to step up with this back foot and to help use my knee to pinch in on his hips, right? And I'm just gonna keep myself steady here, all right? They're probably gonna be moving around, and we keep my base low, keep his knees driven into his face, right? Just make sure his posture is broken down so that he can't extend through, right? And if he does manage to extend, I've still got my arms defending here, right? Keeping it protected. Right? And if I'm feeling comfortable, or if I feel like they've kind of relaxed on their grip, right, then I could start trying to pull this elbow out. But otherwise, I'm just gonna hang out until I feel them try and move on to something else. Right? But just be very cognizant of, you know, what's happening with your arms, right? If I try and move this arm, the one that's blocking my arm, if I try and do something with it, you know, that might leave you vulnerable, right? So if I need to do something with my left arm, right, maybe I'll take this arm and weave it behind his leg here, right? And now I have a free arm to start breaking him down here. Right, so this rear naked choke defense is going to be my defense for like when we're being arm barred in side control, right? Or can you do the high side arm bar? Like when you're kind of on my back here and you've got a Kimura.
Like this?
Yeah.
Gift wrap?
Right, same thing. I know that once this elbow comes around my head here, he's thinking about arm barring me, right? Because he's no longer taking my back, right? It's no longer, well, it's a possibility, but it's less likely, right? This means he's going for an arm bar. I can feel it, so I'm already catching my vulnerable arm, the one he's looking to attack. I'm putting my hand under my bicep here, and this hand is just waiting for a leg to come over, right? So as he continues, right, I'm not going to be caught by surprise, and I can get set up here, where I've got a little bit of space in between my face and his leg, right? My arm is defended, and the more he pulls on this, right, the more he's pulling up on his own legs here, right? So I'm using his structure to keep my arm defended, right? And this isn't a place where we're going to be vulnerable for an infinite amount of time, but it's a place where we can usually make good decisions. Right, so once I'm in this position, I try and figure out like which of his arms are attached to my arms, right? How many arms is he dedicated to attacking this arm bar here, right? And where does he not have a base, right? So if he's hyper acting like aggressive and arm barring and offensive, he's going to be using both of his arms to attack. So at this point, I kind of can choose whichever way I want to go. Usually, I like to bridge here, and then same thing, we're going to haul him up onto his back and start working, either hanging out here until he gives up, or if we're feeling confident, we can start trying to break down and escape the elbow here. All right, sometimes when we're being arm barred here, right, we go for this first one and he bases. Right? But he still has his left arm kind of dedicated to holding onto my arm, so I'll use this momentum to roll him up this other way, drive up. Right? No matter what, that's not true. For the most part, I never want to let go of my hand or stop defending that arm until I am on top. I see a lot of people when they're defended, they think that they can just sneak through and just let go and whip their hand through. It's against a good person, that's not going to work. You always need to have something else on your side in order to even risk like letting go of that defense to start ratcheting your elbow out, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. So usually as me as a person who's attacking, right, I'm in this position and I'm putting like a great amount of weight on it here, right? And if there's nothing keeping his arms together, I'm going to go for it. Right? And if he's like, I'm waiting for him to let go for whatever reason. right? So if he does like go to try and sneak that arm out, right, I'm just gonna finish it. So you can't rely on the person attacking you making a mistake, right? Because you're basically, the only way you're gonna get out is if they don't pay attention and don't react to you fast enough. So I usually advise bridging or doing some sort of big movement to get up on top, either like putting them on your back or on their back and walking around, or doing a backward roll yourself. And then once you can get their spine stacked up where they don't have as much power to extend, then you're safe to maybe start experimenting pulling that elbow out. But if you can't stack them and you can't compress that space, it's really super dangerous. So yeah, those are the things. The one thing I don't deal well with for this type of attack is when they switch up their arms, and then if you hook with your left arm on my arm here, so switch your arms, and then take your left arm and hook my leg. This is different, right? Because here, now even though like your base is gone for this side, I can't really effectively bridge into you. Right? So when this happens, we're not going to be able to do the bridge, but what I think of instead is trying to get underneath this leg and start building here. So if they're leaning like head side, or they're either hooking with the hip side leg, or they have the Kimura, or they're over here, then we're going to do the bridge. But if they do that weird spider web thing where they hook the leg, I usually attack the legs, trying to get into that space. So do that again.
So this is more for when the person comes to the inside and they're
Yeah, so it's really important for the person on top, the person who's attacking, right? At least when I'm attacking here, I really focus on getting underneath this armpit space, right? And making sure that I maintain this inside dominance with my legs here, right? So when you're on bottom, what you want to do is you don't want to let them get in there, right? Because I can't allow you to put anything that will keep my elbows from coming into my body, right? Because this is going to inherently weaken me, right? So if I can, I need to really dig this out and not let you get under that space, right? And then from here, right, if I can't bridge, I can start using my legs to start getting into this space here, right? And then I can try and worm my way back into there. Jeff Glover does a thing where he'll get his legs through that space and then roll all the way over and re-armbar you.
Yep.
But I haven't been able to do that yet.
Yep. Which one do you want?
Whichever one.
The second one?
Alright, so if I can go up and over this way, right, great. Just get them on the back, start stacking them up, and then extract them. And that can be really awkward. I don't know how to make that not awkward, but
In terms of getting up?
yeah, because what happens is, like, you can get them on their back, but then there's this moment where we're here, right? And then it's like, oh man, like, how do I get my body oriented where it's comfortable and I can drive into it here? So here, I usually try and bring this knee up underneath my body here, and then now I can extend away with it.
Yeah.
And then sit
Just
here.
stepping up with your left leg, help it off of that.
Yeah, that's my left leg.
Oh, you're on your knee, but I thought when you were here, I don't know, when you come up,
Mhm.
you're here, can you get up on your left leg? Can you turn your hips down?
Yeah.
But then if you put your left foot on the floor, can you do that?
Not on the foot, but I use my knee.
Okay.
In the
So it's
same
the
idea,
knee.
where I'm like pressing against the floor
Yeah.
to come up. And then the other direction is weird too. Right, so if he's committing both of his arms, and I can put him.
Oh, we want to put this.
If I can,
Well, this is no good.
this is weird, right? Because
Yeah.
if you extend, then I'm like
You're gonna-
back down.
Yeah.
But if I can get my hips out and
Yeah.
drive into you,
Yeah.
right? I need to time it where like your body is going down and you're unable to as easily like push me back to the floor.
Mhm.
But I want to think about using my feet to push my body into yours, making that sort of like bridge effect that happens. and then I can walk my hips into a place that works.
I find that there's a big difference in the when you're getting caught in a armbar, or really any submission in movement, as opposed to, you know, you see this in EBI a lot where the guys start in a spider web, or you start in a, you know, I find that it's rare to be like in that set position and working from there. It's almost always like you're already tired, you're already out of position, you know, they've got your arm, and it's for me, it's hard to get to that set position where you kind of start and you're like, oh, we're chill, and then you go, and it's more along the lines of like the other person has more momentum, or
well, with that like armbar that we did at first, like that's usually easier to time it, like as you sit back, if I can use that to step up, but I prefer to start at dead weight, so if I can get out of it without having a little extra momentum, usually like with it, it's easier. But it's important to also like drill the timing of it too, because if you don't drill like when exactly you need to go based on how they're moving, it's going to be awkward the first couple of times.
There's some benefit to, and I think you anticipated this, of like you're gonna know when you're in the midst of things, like this leg is coming over, right? So if you can anticipate either through movement or through like moving your arm, your free arm or a free leg in you know, some sort of interception, then you're better off than waiting around to get to the.
For me, like,
you know, if I'm here, right, like you were saying, if I'm here, I step over, as this comes across, and you're already, you know, like you have that momentum of my body. Like as I'm leaning to bring this leg over.
And that's why I also, as a person on top, like, if you can avoid providing your partner with extra momentum, like that is a worthy idea of pursuing. So like when you step over, like maybe don't like sit back in one fluid motion, but like give it a weird pause, you know, disrupt the beat. That way they can't anticipate and, you know, use your own momentum against you, as the elders say. But when you're in this position, for me, I don't know about you, but
which one?
When you have the backpack or the backpack seatbelt. Right?
You want me to step over here?
Yeah, so you have the foot over and continue having the seatbelt here, or the Kimura, right? So when it's like this, right, you could either take my back, or what else is there? There's something else.
I mean, you can start doing other types of...
A bunch of weird stuff. But the main two, I think, are the back take and the armbar. So here, right, when the back take is a possibility, that's what I'm focused on, right? I'm thinking that I need to be prepared for you to do a back take so that if it happens, right, I can immediately start trying to defend here, right? But once your arm goes down into my face, that's when, like, immediately, that's what's happening. You're being armbarred here, so this hand needs to come up, like, first thing, right? And from here, if I can start trying to turn into you, but I still usually wait for the leg to come over. And then here.
And then it makes a lot of pressure on my hands.
And I do that thing from guard a lot, where, I mean, I don't recommend allowing a person to, you know, get your elbow across, but, you know, if you have something kind of where you can defend the armbar, it makes you, like, you're not going to freak out as much and make, like, a big movement mistake that they're going to take advantage of, you know? You got the elbow across, great, like, we're going to sit here until I can either, like, calmly and, you know, with purpose bring my elbow back and get safe, or, you know, if you're daring enough to go for that armbar, we can work through it. So it kind of depends on your level of confidence, but...
I don't know that I've seen, I'm trying to think of the last time that I saw someone finish an armlock from guard.
Hudson? Is that guard?
Well, yeah, no, that's a good point. I mean, he, more often than not, he sweeps and then mounts and then arm locks. But yes, I think that's right. But he's okay. One, and he has a nasty arm lock. That's, I think, I've said this to you before, I think Hudson Mateus has the game that we would all have if we were, you know, my theory is that, you know, all the guards are required for people who suck at close guard.
Yeah.
Like if you were good at close guard, you would never use any other guard.
Yeah.
And he's got a great close guard, and so
No
he doesn't need to do anything else. And you know, it's
I agree.
everybody else has these complicated guards that you know are intricate and you know, require a lot of movement and balance. And I mean, not to say that he doesn't, and I'm sure he would excel at all that stuff too. But
Doesn't have to.
but why would you, you know, like why overcomplicate things?
Yeah. What else?
But he's really good at switching, or I don't know about switching, but he's really good at so many things. But he's really good at attacking and sweeping and attacking and go. And he goes really aggressively to one thing, and if you defend it, he's going to put you on the other, right? So it's just A B,
Yeah.
and then it's just you have to defend A,
Yeah.
and then but then you're totally susceptible to B, and then B is not great either because if it's an arm lock you're defending and then he sweeps you, he usually sweeps into mount.
Yeah.
And then you're
And then at the same time, you're like terrified that he's actually going to break your arms, even if you tap.
That's a good mental warfare.
Yes, you have to. It's hard to operate when you're afraid of the other person, right? It throws you off your game so bad,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a new level. Because it's really nice having, you know, no matter what, I know that you're not going to viciously break my arm.
If I can, I will.
I don't think you will, which is why I like you.
Pick your partners. Pick your partners carefully. No, there's no. It's like going to the gym. You know, don't get underneath the bar if you can't.
Yeah.
If you can't do that weight.
I don't know. Some people have told me that, like, they are intimidated of me. Where like, sometimes I'm worried that what I'm doing works because they're afraid of what I'll do to them if it doesn't, you know? So there's like a fine balance between like, you know, really asserting yourself, but you also don't want to be like a mat bully where people are only letting you do things because they're afraid of you.
That is one of the benefits actually of going and competing or going to a different school where people don't know you.
Yeah.
Or having visitors and they don't know you. I mean, I think when it's not just about being a black belt, but if you're obviously pretty good on the mat, you're going to inherently intimidate certain people that have less experience, and so you will get away with more stuff because people don't want to make you angry, or they don't know you very well. And you know, one of the things is like if you see somebody hurt somebody else on the mat, you just see someone get injured, and it's from a submission. It's not just an accident. People look at that. I mean, if you do that a couple times, people are like, "Oh, that person will injure you."
Yeah.
And then I think they will give you a wider berth even in the rolling. But you know, when you go to competition, nobody really is going to be. I mean, people will. I mean, there are people who do frighten other people, right? Like Herbert Santos, I think frightens people, or at least he used to.
Who's Paul Harris?
Paul Harris is another guy who. I mean, I don't think that most MMA fighters are going to be afraid of anybody.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, if you were going to be afraid of someone, he would be a good person to be afraid of, because he has a record of ripping people's knees off even after the tap. That's
with
that
MMA.
merits fear.
With MMA,
Even in MMA.
so in jiu-jitsu, most people will accept accidents.
It's inherent risk, right?
The inherent risk of sometimes you don't tap quick enough, sometimes the other person just hits it too hard. You know what I mean? Like there's things that you accept. In MMA, you're fighting to unconsciousness or
but it's
how many times have you seen the tap where the arms, the shoulders, the neck are just bent, and the person is and a lot of times they get out. But when they don't, it's so extreme. It's very rare that you see in a jiu-jitsu competition this type of contortion where people or acceptance of that, and you know they're getting injured.
Yeah.
But it's not, you're not coming back from that tomorrow. So
like knees, if you roll with the guy and you know that if he gets a hold of you and he's going to end your career, if he gets a hold of your leg, like I'd be afraid.
I mean, it's an ACL, or an MCL. Come on.
Didn't he do that one guy's and then he reached over and did the other leg?
I don't know, but that's awesome. But my favorite part about Paul Harris is just the the attitude of such innocence and confusion. Oh, well, why would you? Why are you so mad? You know, I don't understand. I'm a nice person. What did I do? Again, the third time.
Nice break. I mean, when you're releasing on the 8th tap, like that's, you know, it's 5 too late.
Yeah. So, all right. So arm locks, escapes.
Escapes. Never let go of your hands until you're on top. Very important. Let's see.
What about the running man? You're not a big believer in the running man.
Every time I've gotten my arm popped, it's from the. I mean, not to say that it doesn't work. It's just not worth the risk, in my opinion. We could teach it.
I don't do it.
I wait for people to do it.
The closest thing that I do to that is when the person, when you're here, right, and then you go to it.
Yeah.
That's the closest that I do, right?
Not like putting your hand over here.
No, but it's sort of similar in the sense of, right, well, the problem with you is that you don't, this is very rare that you do this. You're more often than not, you're Kimura trapping, or Kimura.
Well, I do this.
You know, so here, it's hard to get here, right? And then I'm off here, and then you're gonna go. So, you have to you can't wait for the person to put 2 hands on your arm and try to go.
I agree.
Right? It's not.
I feel like that's something you need to do. Like if it's already
here, you gotta go. You gotta go right away.
That's your last chance.
But even here, you can't do it while the person's seated out.
So it's gotta
right. Like if I'm here like this is
you can do this.
You could, but what I'm saying is like let's go back. Right. If you go to the spiderweb position, right, like you're here.
Mm-hmm.
Well, then this is not.
Yeah. Well, this
the
spiderweb was designed to deal with this. This happened because the hitchhikers was happening.
What I'm trying to say is you should be doing this when the person is sitting, right? Before they have their arm. Like you shouldn't let them have the second arm on.
Correct.
Right. So if you go back, like let's say you're here, right? You should already be going, right? You can't wait. You can't wait.
Yeah.
Or you might give up your back.
The hide the hand thing that I like.
Oh.
Where you take
coming inside. Yeah, but you kill all that.
Not really.
Yeah.
I do this and it works.
Yeah, because you have longer limbs. This one is if I come here, which is kind of like
I like half.
Yeah, and then you like running, right? But if you can, right? If you can get this inside like this, and I try to do that.
Yeah.
It's the same idea.
Like a little bit of space.
You just know all my tricks now. So if I'm here like this, I'll do the same. Like this is like this accepted defense. Like you see this a lot.
Yeah.
But the reason I do this is because it's very hard for me to get up. Right? So if I'm here like here and I'm trying to get up, that's hard for me.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's hard for me to bridge into you. There's so much kind of length.
Have you tried bridging this way and then throwing me that way?
No, I'm not throwing anybody anywhere anymore. Because I'm fragile and weak.
Oh, you're not that bad.
I'm super
try
bad.
it.
So
bridge here and
I can't get up.
And then come down, throw me down towards what would be my left.
No, and then up here, and then I get my head smashed backwards.
But if I try and push in, you need to be more aggressive here and then keep coming.
So I guess my handicap, if you will, is that I feel very gun shy about bridging, right? Bridging's fun, but then again, you do that to me. You like that?
Yeah, don't let me do that.
So this is go back, right? You're in here, right? So if we're here like this, I have a choice, right? I can either try to do that one.
That's a bad idea.
Well, I think sometimes you get to hear
I stand by my never letting go. Like this, that's good.
I'm still kind of connected to something.
Yeah, like you're hiding your leg behind my leg, which is a little less good.
So what happens is here when you, let's see, go back. So this is no problem, right? Almost always I can get to this position.
Yes.
Right? So then the problem is when I get to here, you're able to straighten your leg.
Yeah, I start
and you start kicking.
Yes.
Right? So I think what you have to do is, let's say I come here. Can you kick it out now?
It's less comfortable for me.
All right. Yeah, and then you're gonna start breaking it down. So that's why I'm like, this is like death.
Mm-hmm.
Here, usually, like if I can get, let's say I'm here, and I do this, right? If I just try to hold, sometimes I can get it away, but I'm like almost always trying to get to here, like that. And then I can frame. I think it's hard for you to.
I like to hook this arm here and then start trying to get this back.
Yeah, it's hard.
But here, can you armbar me?
Just don't get armbarred. That's the best
That's not
defense.
fun.
Now, which way do you want me to do it?
Can you hook with your left arm? Alright, so
Yeah.
you get this here, right? So if I can just pop you
Yeah.
down, right? Or I'll bridge here as if I'm trying to come all the way up, but usually you're not going to let.
And then you come back and like whip it up. Yeah,
Or what I used to do when someone was like
I
really
can do
digging
that
on
if I'm like totally warmed up and it's maybe
it's not
I'm
that
at
hard. Your whole body's.
Well,
Here, try this. All right, so you're gonna hold on to my arms with both of your arms, right? And I'm just gonna have this gable grip. All right, so 2 arm connection
all right.
for you.
Okay. Do you want like this?
Yep, and like tight. Good. All right, so I'm just gonna get used to
I need to do my what are those called? The
Kegels.
no. No.
Right, so there's a range.
What is that? What is the overhead where you're doing these with the
Tricep
the-
extensions?
yeah, that's what I need.
Skull crushers.
Yeah, sculpt. There you go.
Right, so I usually do this when a person does the double ankle lock. So go exit on this side of mine.
Oh, you mean like this?
Yeah. Right, so this is like dangerous for me because like this is the strongest grip break that I have. So when someone gets this, like if I don't do something, they're gonna pop this open, right? But however, in order for them to do that, right, they're gonna have to engage both of their arms to be strong enough to pop the grip, and now they don't have any base, right? So here I like to push them down, and then my feet engage with the floor here, and I drive into my person to be able to come up. So what I can do is I can threaten bridging them to either side, so that
Let me just practice the first one that you got.
I want to make them not comfortable enough to base.
So you're just doing this? Is that?
Yeah, back and forth.
Oh, I gotta work this out. But now, do you have? No, you're just here like this, or are you gonna do this one?
Yeah, I like to do this one.
So here. Yeah. So you might. It's like you gotta. I gotta come up here. Maybe that's just like a drill that I gotta do.
And then for me, I can start thinking about how can I like disrupt as he tries to come up, right? So I can think about where his weight is and like what timing that he has to do, and like right before he gets up, I'll just put a little pulse of energy back down into him, and yeah, it's a nice drill. But I like bridging into this way first, and then when I try to push back, then you go. Yeah.
You get up, and this is where you just like.
So here I'm going to be trying to push down here. So you need to like be already pushing into me with your feet.
Yeah, but I can't. Yeah, I gotta.
Yeah,
Do you use your head at all, or
Yes.
like here?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So once you find that line of force,
Again, the last time I was able to sack somebody from there,
it's hard.
it's hard.
Yeah. If someone's actively like trying to open up your face and put your head back on the ground, But the thing is, if you start to push me that way, then I might be able to follow that direction and come up the other direction.
Mm-hmm.
So it's
That's a heavy lift for me.
like you're trying to just add enough momentum to work with, right? You try and go one way, they put you down. Okay, let's go this way. They stop that. All right, we're going this way, and gradually you should be able to have enough to come back on top. And if not,
I just give you my neck and try to get out of the back control.
I mean, that's an option. Give him something else.
Give them something else. That's a heavy lift. I try to if I can not to be in that position. I mean, that's like a death. I mean, it depends on the person too, right? It really depends. Like your arm lock is really good. You have a very highly evolved arm lock.
Yeah,
whereas a lot of people,
I can escape.
they're not. It's one of those things where I was thinking about this you know, you learn, you can look at these techniques. This is the thing that someone can show you this stuff, right? And you can do step 1, step 2, step 3, and that all makes sense, and it works on a high level against really good people. But what they can't show you are all the things that they've developed, like their flexibility. Like there's characteristics that each kind of person has, right? Whether it's mental, it's timing. You can't. It's very difficult to teach timing, right? You can say like, this is when I do it, or this is the key that I'm looking at, but you can't actually imbue timing on somebody. You can give them the drills that maybe will help them, but you can't just be like, okay, here's the timing, or here's this type of strength, this core strength, or this strength, or this flexibility within strength, or strength within flexibility. Some people can be in very awkward positions and still be very solid.
Yeah. And
you see that, like Marcelo is Cobrinha, Jeff Glover is another guy, you mentioned him. These guys they're deceptively small. Like, you look at them and you're like, well, how strong could they? They're freakishly strong, but not just freakishly strong in the sense of like, they can bench press 250 pounds, which they may not, probably can. But they're freakishly strong in certain jiu-jitsu type positions where 99% of the time, you would be able to hit that sweep, right? Or defend that arm lock or whatever, and they're just able, because they just have a little of that timing, they have that, you know, even just the little things, the little adjustments that you make.
Yeah, I agree.
You know, like the leg hat is something that you do really well, that a lot of people, that's like the length of, like, how you use your leverage, all those things.
And like when you're relaxed and when you're tense, and what parts of you are relaxed and what parts of you are tense.
And how do you react to the other person's, right? Like, you're really good at waiting and hanging. Like, you can hang and put a lot of like just dead weight onto something without using a lot of effort. Whereas other people are trying to like try to really explode on something, which is, I would prefer in a way.
Yeah.
You know, because it's kind of easier to get out of that as opposed to that weight that is just hanging on. You're like, if I let go, I'm just arm locking myself, really.
And you know I'm not getting tired.
And you're not getting tired. So it's one of those things that you can understand what people are doing, like, intellectually, but they're actually doing a lot of other things that are like kind of under the surface.
Yeah. There's like a kind of like a checklist that whenever you do any sort of position, like, there are things that you look for and you try and like check off those boxes. And I think Kimura is just one of those things where I've got a lot more boxes to check off than other positions that I have at my disposal. And a lot of that is, you know, based on my experience with the position, my experience with the person I'm rolling with, and like little things like day to day where like, oh, my wrist hurts, so I'm gonna like make sure this is comfortable.
Yeah, that's mastery. Like, you can read about something in a book and understand it, you know,
but having like
intellectual
a
level.
personal opinion about the way things should be, and then, you know, I have really strong feelings about the Kimura.
Yes.
Like, I have opinions about them.
But you know, the interesting thing is, you can have a very strong opinion about what works
for me,
for you, but trying to teach those things to other people can be challenging, because like you have a different length, you have different strength level, you have different flexibility level, you just have a different experience level, right? And everyone's got an opinion about what they're doing and what works for them. But I mean, the interesting thing to me is always like, well, what are the consistent things across these guys or across these people? I mean, there's certain points that they all kind of agree on, and then they'll kind of talk about these finer distinctions. But I think that is more about what you as an athlete can do, right? And what works for you or what doesn't work for you.
Yeah. Everyone has their own personal, you know, list of checkboxes.
Also matters like what who you're competing against, right? I mean, you can compete against somebody like whatever, you know, who's really like Jake McKenzie. I don't know if you know who Jake McKenzie is. So Jake McKenzie's this guy, Canadian guy's GFT, really good, but he's a lightweight and he's over the years, he's basically he's done well at a bunch of different tournaments, but whenever Lucas Lepre shows up, or JT Torres shows up, like he's just going to lose.
Yeah.
And he has very particular, and I think his stuff is really good. But if you just look at, like his pool of people, right? Like he's had to develop things that work or don't work based on the fact that he's got Huffman. I guess now Huff is not lightweight, but JT Torres, Lucas Lepre. Who else is a lightweight?
Is Key lightweight?
No, I think they're
Feather Rooster.
Yeah, something like that. But anyway, it's just you develop certain things because of the people that you're training or competing against.
Oh, of course.
And maybe this would work against 99% of the people, but even your best move doesn't work against their best.
I was talking to Aubrey about this actually. Like, how much of your jiu-jitsu that exists currently do you attribute to like you and your own personal work putting into it, and how much do you attribute to just the jiu-jitsu environment in which you place yourself?
Like, you mean what school you're in, or
just like your jiu-jitsu? Like, how do you think? How much agency did you have in the development of your own jiu-jitsu? Like, as far as like bringing it to the state that it is.
I'd like to say none of it was my fault. Right? It's all Henzo and John. Whatever. But no, that's not fair. We're all shown jiu-jitsu. Very few people come. I don't think anybody just shows up and starts doing jiu-jitsu. Like, you're all given your instructors and your training partners and even your competitors.
Yeah.
You learn from them. The jiu-jitsu is something that we come to, right, and is taught to us, and then at some point we take the things that we are given and we adapt them for good or for bad. To who we are, and or who we are in any given moment.
The problems you have to face for that day.
I think the jiu-jitsu, that I started off with is very. I mean, even just in terms of like what the techniques that are taught now, or over, like after 5 years, like so in 1996, I think, or 97.
5 years ago.
Hmm?
It was longer than 5
No,
years
but I'm
ago.
saying like, so, the gap between techniques between 1996 and 2001 were huge.
Yeah.
Like that, there's like a huge, if you go back and you look at kind of like what was going on in 96.
Yeah, it's like close guard and pendulum sweep to everything, right?
Right, and then 2001, you've got like Marcelo Garcia.
Yeah.
Right, and I mean, and now people don't forget too, at least for me, this is almost kind of the beginning of the internet, like a video on internet.
Yeah.
And so like nobody had heard, like I had never heard of Marcelo because I wasn't watching. Like if you were a real student of the game back then, right, and you were watching all the videos that were being taken on your VHS or whatever, like you might know Marcelo Garcia because he was competing in Brazil. But I think like when he first came into my awareness, it was from Abu Dhabi, right? And then you're like, who's this guy? And then he explodes onto the scene, but that's 2001-ish, right? And then another 5 years go by.
It was Kyle.
And now it's that whole other, and the difference between Caio Terra and
Rafa Mendes
and that whole school, and of course they were in Brazil at the time coming up, but we didn't. I mean, as an American, that had a job, and didn't dedicate myself 1,000% to jiu-jitsu. It was like these guys, I didn't really. Well, you couldn't get video of the world championships, right? Like you couldn't get.
Yeah.
This stuff just wasn't widely available. So my point is just that, what I was learning was essentially directly from Henzo, right? Whatever Henzo taught, whatever John taught, whatever Ricardo Almeida taught, and they were teaching more. It was no gi. They went to Abu Dhabi, right? Like, but they were much more of a focus on MMA, and so sport jiu-jitsu was not so. In my case, right, and that's different if you were training, I don't know, somewhere else, some alliance school, back in the early 2000s or 2000. So every 5 years, it seems like there's this difference And it's also different in terms of the competitors and what the competitors are doing.
Did
You know,
Marcelo
meta
do
changes.
MMA? Did Marcelo do MMA?
He did. He had one fight against a Korean guy, and he lost the fight. I think he got caught a knee or something to the face, and I think he dominated the guy too in the first couple minutes of the. And then the guy was just like, oh, I can, you know, like, you don't like to get punched and kicked, you know, like, oh, you're not so good after all. But I mean, Marcelo fought. I mean, he didn't like give up. I don't think he got. He didn't tap. I don't think he got knocked out. I may be wrong about that, but yeah. So I guess my point is just that you're given all these things, and depending on what, you know, how much, where you are, when did you start learning? And you know, now kids are learning much.
Yeah.
Like they're starting to do jiu-jitsu when they're 8, and these kids are now 16, 17. They're just amazing. I listened to this judo podcast from Chuck Jefferson, and you know all the judo. These are people who varying degrees of success in judo on the national stage. But even the people who were Olympic alternates, certainly if they were Olympians or world on the national teams, they all started in judo when they were like 6.
Yeah.
More often than not in a family where the dad was a judo player, the mom was a judo player, all their brothers and sisters were judo players, and you know, now you're starting to see that.
It's like a family lifestyle.
In jiu-jitsu, where kids are coming up and, you know, they're just taking over. Yeah. And it's much different than, you know, where it was 10 years ago, where you could just be, you know, maybe you had a good judo background and you started doing jiu-jitsu and you could start winning some tournaments, you know, and purple belt, you know, like.
Do you think that getting good at sport jiu-jitsu requires ignoring self-defense?
Ignoring?
Like if I wanted a world champion kid by the time he's 16, should I show him the punch block defense, or is that like a need to know thing?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're serious, I mean, you look at any sport, any combat sport, you know, judo, they don't
teach punch block.
They don't teach. I mean, there is a whole self-defense curriculum in judo.
Yeah. Is there?
Yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
And
is it against swords? Is it against swords?
I don't know what it is, but because I never learned it. But there's all these like punches and kicks and things like defensive and that. Yeah, there's katas. There's a whole other thing about katas in judo that kind of nobody ever pays. It's awesome to watch.
Well, I know a couple of guys who.
It's when you do it with a group. You do it not group, but you do it with another person. You have to have.
Well, I heard that you have to memorize the kata in order to get the black belt.
You do.
So
it's the Kano no kata.
They're just like, I'm not gonna get a black belt because I'm not gonna.
It's not that hard. I did it.
I don't think they think it's hard. It's just not worth their time.
It's usually you do it when you're a kid.
Yeah.
Right. You do it when you're 13 or 14 years old, I guess.
You didn't. You just.
Well, I'm old. You know, I didn't do judo when I was a kid. I don't think there was any judo that I knew of when I was a kid, and where I was.
Oh,
but
when you were a kid, that was longer.
You know, that's like back in the you know, on the prairie. No, I mean, I think if you were focused, it's kind of like if you were a swimmer, if you were an elite level swimmer, if you're Michael Phelps, you don't need to know CPR and how to be a good lifeguard in order to win the Olympics. In fact, that's probably, you know, open sea swimming and rescue techniques and, you know, that type of survival, like water survival skills.
Yeah.
He doesn't need to know that stuff. It's probably detrimental to waste valuable training time.
Detrimental.
Probably detrimental. I'm sure his routine at that level is so fine-tuned.
Well, how about for the normal person though? You know, like.
Then it gets back to like, what's your goal as a person, as a student who's training in jiu-jitsu? If your goal is to go to the in jiu-jitsu we don't have Olympics, but if your goal is to go to Abu Dhabi,
don't do self-defense.
You shouldn't do a gi. You shouldn't do anything in the gi.
Yeah.
You shouldn't do, right? Like all these things that are just not useful at all. No self-defense, no gi. What else would you not do?
Heroin.
Probably not heroin. Maybe, I don't know. But, you know, you would be focused on what are the rules, and you would just do those rules, or at least you would do the rule sets that were as close as possible, right? Like, so it's, in judo they have a bunch of techniques that are banned. Yes. Right, like just even touching the legs, where 10, 20, 30 years ago, you know, judo at the Olympic, at the international level, you could grab the legs.
Yeah.
But yeah, those are all great throws.
Yeah.
They all work. But if your goal is to go and compete at the national, international level, you should never work on any of those throws because it is detrimental to your development.
Well, unless you're already really good at them and you can chain them into an attack, right? Because you're allowed to do that, where you go for a regular thing and they counter, and then you go for the
You
legs?
can't touch the legs.
At all?
Well, now, I mean, they've changed, I think they've changed the rules a little bit, where like
thought
it used to
you-
be if you accidentally grabbed it, like that was it. Like you couldn't touch the leg.
I thought it was
You
always
certainly
like
can't pick them up and do like double legs like you used to be able to. Or katagarumas, like you can't touch the leg for a fireman's carry. So you shouldn't learn those.
Yeah.
Why would you do it? Right, kanigasami. If you want to, that's a great throw. It's an awesome throw.
Yeah.
But for Abu Dhabi, there's no rule against kanigasami. There's no rules against heel hooks. You should be learning heel
That
hooks.
should be the thing.
If your goal is to be the gi world champion at IBJJF, then you shouldn't learn any heel hooks. That's a waste of time.
Yeah.
And, you know, but that's for somebody who is actually going to dedicate themselves to that goal seriously and is willing, you know, it says like, yes, I'm going to spend 2, 3, 4 years to get to that level. I can legitimately compete. Whereas if you're just a regular person who has a job and some kid, you know, or is a college student, and you just want to do this to learn something fun, then, you know, why not learn it? You know, it works both ways. You have people who they are never going to go to the world championships, right? They're not competing, but they hold themselves to these rules.
Yeah.
They, you know, it's just like you're not allowed to do this, and you're not. Why we're doing IBJJF rules, which, from a safety perspective, you know, in a mixed group, like makes sense. It's not irrational. But really, those people who are not going to compete, there's no reason why they shouldn't be learning.
Yeah.
You know, heel hooks and all the things that are illegal within the bounds of safety.
Yeah. I mean, everyone should be on the same page as far as what the rule set you're rolling by is.
I guess my point is, don't pretend to be something that you are not. Don't train to do something that you are never, or probably in all likelihood, are not going to do.
But then, like, because you say, you know, if you're going to dedicate your time and in order to be a champion, then you shouldn't waste your time doing this. But, you know, is there like, how do I know that I qualify for being the person who's dedicating enough?
I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, right? I mean, if you enjoy a certain way of training jiu-jitsu, then there's no one to say that you can't train that way.
Yeah.
But at least be cognizant of, like, so the people come in the door and they're like, I want to learn some self-defense. I want to learn how to fight.
Yeah.
Right? And then they're always wearing a gi, and they're always bare bowling, badly, usually, right?
Yeah.
Like, well, what do you do? You're not learning how to, like, you're pretending to be whoever you're pretending to be.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, and it's
Yeah.
if you want to learn how to fight, then there's a different jiu-jitsu
So
that
like,
you should
but
learn.
what if I want to learn how to fight and I want to learn how to do this?
You can do that too, but but I guess
Just
you
be
should accept that you're
consistent.
probably going to be mediocre at best, which is fine. I mean, you can be like, my jiu-jitsu is not the greatest on the planet, right? Like, I think it's still a worthwhile endeavor to learn a little bit about how to fight or how to do some self-defense or how to train in a gi or
just,
you know, like,
be consistent with your
at
self-representation.
least understand what you're doing, right?
Yeah.
And don't be
Well,
surprised
that's
if it
still a
yields
stretch.
less than optimal.
You can't ask everybody to understand what exactly they're doing. as they do it.
Well, I guess if people just want to come in and just have fun for whatever, and they just are open. Like, I mean, look, you know, I started doing jiu-jitsu with Enzo Rossi, not because I really entertained ever the idea of being an MMA fighter, right?
Why did you start?
Well, I actually played basketball a lot, and I had a little bit of a mouth, and so there were many instances, more than a few instances where
You had
a little bit.
You had
I talked a lot of
mouth.
trash.
You made some people mad.
I made some people mad on the court. I was good at coming up with trash talk, right? But I wasn't good at like really fighting.
Yeah.
So, you know, I would see, and as you get older, right? As you get older, when you're 17, 18, 20, 22, you know, people are more and more willing to fight with you, like for real.
Yeah.
Like, no one's gonna break it up.
Yeah.
You know, when you're 15, 16, you're still in high school, people will break you up.
Yeah.
Sometimes, at least where I was. But when you get a little bit older, you go to certain courts, and they're just gonna like, we're gonna watch and have fun, watching you guys mess each other up. And so I thought to myself, I should really learn how to fight, because I'm gonna get my ass beat one day. And
you didn't think like maybe I should just stop talking shit?
yeah, I wasn't in that place mentally when I was there. So I was like, I gotta learn how to fight a little bit. And so jiu-jitsu seemed like a pretty good option at that point. And then the funny part is that I still played basketball for a long time, and then eventually I was just like, I'm just gonna play jiu-jitsu. So,
did you talk shit while doing jiu-jitsu?
Sometimes, yes, yeah. But that only lasts for so long. You only do it to certain people.
Yeah.
And after a while, you just realize. So I think that comes with the humility that I think everyone. Not about everyone, but eventually you will learn some humility in jiu-jitsu, whether you have it in the beginning,
or at least know how to pretend.
Or you can. I mean,
which is valuable.
Eventually, you will be humbled in jiu-jitsu. Everyone. There's no one in any activity, right? Like you're never. Roger Gracie at some point, maybe when he's 90 years old, will not be able to beat anybody anymore.
Well, there's always only one person who's the best at any time.
In any given competition.
Yeah.
For that one.
No. There's like right now on the earth, there is one person who is the best at jiu-jitsu. The competition is used to reveal who that person is, but it does not determine who it is.
I don't know about that, because sometimes there's the person who can beat everybody, but it always seems like there's one guy who can beat that one person. Can't beat anybody else necessarily, but he can beat that one guy.
Yeah, but there has to be one person who is the best at jiu-jitsu. Because we can agree that...
Because they won the world championship.
Nothing to do with if they won anything, right? Because we can agree that there are people with different levels of jiu-jitsu, right?
Correct. Yes.
So they're not all the same, right? There's like varying levels.
Yes.
So if among all the people, there has to be at least one person who has the best jiu-jitsu.
Well, if the best is defined as can defeat everyone else in jiu-jitsu.
No, that's not how you define best.
How do you define the best?
The best jiu-jitsu.
But how do you determine that? Through competition?
You can determine it in many different ways.
What's your determination?
I mean,
how do you define the best?
That will differentiate who is the best. So I'm not going to specify.
You can't say there's someone the best and then not say how do you determine the best.
No, I can say that there is one person who is the best at jiu-jitsu.
By a given criteria.
If you want to qualify it that way,
no, you have to go because best is a
qualified
qualification.
in many different ways, but in all of those different ways, there is one person that is the best.
In all those different ways, there is one person that is the best. So really, there's like 25 people who are the best.
No, there's only one person who is the best.
No, that's not true. Because you're not defining what best is.
You can redefine best all you want.
I'm asking you to define it in the first place.
How would I define the best person?
That's what I'm asking you. That's like saying there's the best fish in the sea.
I mean, all right.
The best fish at what? They
no,
go like swimming the fastest, swimming the deepest, swimming the longest,
swimming. If you had a group
eating the most other fish.
If you had a group of
living
people,
the longest.
You compare
the happiest fish that it can
their
be.
jiu-jitsu, and the worst one gets put in that group. Then you go on to another one, right? Whoever's jiu-jitsu is better.
How do you determine the better?
I guess you could do it by tournament, but it seems like that's not really. The people who are not the best can often win tournaments is the issue, So a tournament.
Look, a lot of people have won jiu-jitsu tournaments because Roger Gracie wasn't there.
Exactly.
Or Marcelo Garcia was not there.
So you can't rely on tournaments to reveal.
That's true. Maybe they're injured. They're the best in that moment, though.
But there still has to be a person who is the best.
No, I don't think so.
Most consistent wins, do you think?
I mean, you can look at somebody over the course of time and you can say, how many world championships have they won? And you say, well, he's won 10, and the other people have won 8.
Yeah,
therefore he's the best.
The problem is like the environment that they compete in changes over time, so you can't really be like.
This is the eternal. Yeah. This is the eternal debate, right? Of if you could take Michael Phelps back to the time of. I mean, you can look at their times, and you can say, or you can look at Michael Jordan, right, or Allen Iverson, and you can say, well, they scored this many points. But you say the rules were different, right? I mean, Stephen Curry, for example, versus Isaiah Thomas. right? I mean, both are are great scorers, but if you took Steph Curry back to the 80s, probably, right? Probably wouldn't last the season.
Yeah.
Or 3 seasons, right? But
So it makes.
or you could say, you know, like the science is different, like
Yes.
how they train, what they ate, you know, how they were.
Or even how you measure things.
Well, I mean, you can, you know, you have the great champions of old, and the rules change, and the competition, like even the competition, you could say, you know, like in baseball,
Yeah.
some people would argue that no records, like no one should respect a record before, you know, black players were allowed to play.
Yeah.
Like, you know, like,
Yeah.
I mean, those guys were the best at the time, but, I mean, okay, come on, let's be honest here, like, you were not playing against at least a complete competition.
They increased the competition pool. That would inherently drive up competition. But yeah, so I don't know.
It's hard to make these comparisons, you know, between the certain rules. You couldn't dunk for a certain period of time.
But can we agree that there is one person out there who is the best at jiu-jitsu?
No. I don't know what the best means.
Is that only true because it's impossible to measure who is
To be
the
continued. What?
best? Is that only?
No, it's possible that you have to. What is the criteria? You have to decide. If you were to say this is you could say 5 different ways.
Why do you have to specify
Because the best,
criteria?
by saying something is the best, implicit in that is the
No way.
question of how are you measuring the best?
Just best.
No, the best is a quality.
There are some people who are good at jiu-jitsu. There are some people who are bad at jiu-jitsu. I want the people who are most good at
The problem is
jiu-jitsu.
that you can be excellent in jiu-jitsu in a lot of different ways.
But I want
You
the
could be an
most
excellent coach in jiu-jitsu. You could be an excellent teacher. Coaches are different than teachers.
Best at jiu-jitsu.
Best at. What kind of gi? No gi? IBJJF? Abu Dhabi? Judo?
Grappling.
There's no such thing as
Like
grappling.
fighting without hitting and without poking eyes.
That's
or
not fighting
slapping
though.
taints.
Who's the best fighter?
But you know, grappling. That's what's defining.
I mean, that's a very broad. I mean, is wrestling is that within the
Wrestling
world
is
of
grappling.
grappling?
Yeah. It's just a different rule set.
Well, so then what rule set?
The like common jujitsu rule set.
I mean, if you take, you know, like this is like when
like what's the essence of
when
jiu-jitsu?
Gordon Ryan like has grappling matches against high-ish level,
Why are you saying grappling?
because it's
Oh, the wrestlers.
because what they do is they'll have like one round of wrestling and then they have one round of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And then, you know, like
Yeah.
basically they ragdoll them around for 3-minute period, 2-minute period, and then they do jiu-jitsu and he taps them out.
Yeah.
You know.
So who's the better grappler?
But who's the better grappler? Well, I mean, it depends on what the rules are.